When you turn your gaze inward, the world begins to shift. In silence, your spirit gathers its strength, your wounds find their healing, and your dreams find their wings. Speak less, move with grace, and let your quiet become thunder. Watch how the world bows to your peace. Silence is often mistaken for weakness, for absence, or for surrender. Yet silence holds a strength louder than any voice. It is not the stillness of fear, but the calm of mastery. The person who has learned to be silent has learned to control the most powerful force of all, the self. When you learn to be quiet, you are not retreating. You are gathering power. You are choosing not to waste your energy in explaining, defending, or reacting. You are choosing to rise above noise, to let truth breathe without needing your proof. Silence is where clarity lives. When you quiet the chaos around you, you begin to hear your own heartbeat again. You hear the small, honest voice within you that the world tries so hard to silence. In stillness, you meet yourself. You see what you value, what hurts, what you must release. Noise keeps you distracted. Silence brings you home. It teaches you to stand tall in your solitude and to trust that your worth does not depend on how loudly you speak, but on how deeply you understand. In a world that praises reaction, silence becomes rebellion. People will try to provoke you, to drag you into their storms, to make you explain yourself again and again. But silence says, I owe you no performance. It is the art of knowing that your truth does not need applause to be real. You do not have to shout to be heard. You only need to know who you are. When you master silence, you stop giving your peace away to every argument that passes by. You stop proving yourself to those who cannot see you. You let your calm become your language, and that calm unsettles everything that is false. There is wisdom in restraint. Every word not spoken becomes a lesson in patience. Every pause becomes a shield. Silence allows emotions to settle before they turn into regret. It gives space for understanding to grow, for anger to fade, for truth to surface. When you are silent, you begin to see how much of life's noise is unnecessary. How often people speak just to fill the void, not to say something meaningful. Silence is not the absence of thought. It is the presence of awareness. It is the decision to observe rather than react, to feel rather than fight, to hold your peace rather than scatter it. In silence, you start to notice what truly matters. You see how words can wound, how noise can blind, how chaos can drown wisdom. But when you choose silence, your presence becomes more commanding. People begin to notice your calm. They start to feel your steadiness. The quiet person in the room is not the weakest. They are the most powerful, for they do not need to prove their power. Silence becomes a mirror reflecting strength, dignity, and depth. Silence also teaches you compassion. When you stop speaking for a moment, you start listening, really listening. You hear the pain in someone's tone, the fear behind their anger, the longing behind their words. You begin to understand that not everything requires your response. Sometimes your stillness is the most healing gift you can give. Silence opens the door to empathy, to wisdom, to grace. So when the world grows too loud, step back into your quiet. Let others rush to speak. Let others scramble to be seen. You stay still. You stay centered. Let your silence speak for you, because it will. It will speak of your peace, your strength, your resilience. It will tell the world that you are unshaken, that your power lives not in your voice, but in your calm. And when you finally choose to speak, your words will carry the weight of truth, sharpened by silence itself. Self-reflection is the quiet conversation you have with your soul, the mirror you hold not to your face, but to your being. It is not about judging what you see. It is about understanding it. In a world that moves so quickly, where everyone is rushing to be seen and heard, few pause long enough to truly know themselves. But self-reflection asks you to stop running and look inward, to face the truths you've buried under distractions and pride. It is the act of sitting with your own thoughts without the noise of others shaping them. And in that stillness, you begin to discover who you really are. When you reflect, you begin to understand the patterns that shape your life. You see how your fears build walls and how your hopes open doors. You recognize how often you've mistaken comfort for peace and noise for purpose. Reflection is not a punishment, it is a sacred pause. It is the space between who you were and who you are becoming. It teaches you to take responsibility for your choices without drowning in guilt. It shows you that mistakes are not marks of failure, but messages from the past asking you to grow wiser. Through self-reflection, you also learn humility. You begin to see your flaws not as curses, but as invitations to evolve. You stop blaming others for the cracks in your story and start asking what lessons those cracks are trying to teach. Reflection strips away pride and replaces it with honesty. It allows you to look at your life not through the eyes of the world, but through the eyes of truth. And truth, though sometimes uncomfortable, always sets you free. It frees you from pretense, from resentment, from self-deception. When you take time to reflect, you learn to separate what is yours to carry from what was handed to you. You start recognizing which voices belong to you and which ones were planted by others. Family, society, expectations. You see how often you've lived to please, to prove, to fit in. But reflection whispers that peace doesn't live in the approval of others, it lives in authenticity. When you begin to understand yourself, you stop seeking validation from places that cannot offer it. You learn that being whole has nothing to do with being perfect and everything to do with being honest. Self-reflection also builds resilience. It prepares you to face life's storms with grace. When you know yourself, your strengths, your wounds, your values, you are not easily shaken. You stop reacting to every gust of wind because you know where your roots lie. Reflection teaches emotional maturity, the ability to observe your feelings without being consumed by them. It helps you step outside of your pain and ask, what is this trying to show me, rather than, why is this happening to me? That shift changes everything. It turns suffering into wisdom and confusion into clarity. It is in reflection that gratitude grows. When you look back, you begin to see how far you've come, how many battles you've survived, how much you've learned even in the silence. You start honoring the moments that once broke you because they became the foundation of your strength. You realize that the same pain that once silenced you has now taught you to listen to yourself, to others, to life. So take time to sit in your own company, turn off the noise, put down the masks, and listen. Ask yourself what you need, what you feel, what you are becoming. Let your own heart answer. The world will always demand your attention, but reflection reminds you that the most important voice you can ever hear is your own. In knowing yourself, you find peace. In understanding yourself, you find power. And in accepting yourself, you find freedom. Energy preservation is not about withdrawing from life. It is about learning where to place your spirit. Every day, you are given a limited amount of emotional, mental, and physical energy. How you spend it defines the rhythm of your peace. Many lose their balance not because life is cruel, but because they scatter their energy across too many battles that do not belong to them. Energy preservation is the art of knowing what deserves your light and what deserves your silence. It is wisdom, restraint, and self-respect intertwined. There are moments when reacting feels natural, when someone's words sting, when circumstances test your patience, when chaos calls your name. But not every moment deserves a reaction. Each time you respond to negativity, you pour a piece of yourself into it. You give away strength that could have been used to build something beautiful. Energy preservation asks you to pause before you react, to ask yourself, does this truly deserve my peace? Most often the answer is no. It is not indifference, it is intelligence. It is the awareness that not all noise deserves an audience, and not all fire needs your hands to control it. Preserving your energy also means choosing your company with care. The people around you either recharge you or drain you. Some leave you lighter, others leave you weary. You begin to notice how conversations shape your spirit, how gossip, complaint, or negativity can weigh down your day, while honesty, laughter, and love can lift it. Energy preservation is an act of discernment. It means walking away from spaces where your peace is too expensive to maintain. It means understanding that boundaries are not walls. They are filters that protect your well-being. Often, the loudest thief of energy is overthinking. The mind spins stories, replays memories, and imagines futures that never come. You spend hours fighting battles that exist only in thought. Energy preservation teaches you to release control, to stop feeding what drains you. When you trust the flow of life, you save power that once burned in worry. You learn to live from the inside out, calmly, intentionally, and with purpose. Instead of scattering your strength across the chaos of what if, you focus it on what is. And in that focus, you find serenity. There is also power in saying no. Many fear it because they mistake it for rejection or coldness. But saying no is an act of self-love. It is a way of saying yes to your priorities, to your rest, to your growth. You cannot pour from an empty cup. You cannot give light when your flame has burned out. Preserving your energy means honoring your own limits without guilt. It means resting when needed, withdrawing when necessary, and engaging only when it feels right for your soul. Energy is sacred. It is not something to be thrown into every conflict or conversation. It should be invested in the things that nurture your spirit, your dreams, your healing, your joy. When you learn to conserve it, you become more grounded, more patient, more powerful. The small irritations that once consumed you begin to lose their grip. You no longer chase validation or drain yourself trying to be understood. You simply live, knowing that peace is a stronger response than anger, and stillness is more potent than noise. Preserving your energy is not selfish. It is survival. It is choosing peace over performance, clarity over chaos, and presence over exhaustion. It is the recognition that your light was never meant to flicker for everyone. It was meant to shine steadily, intentionally, and with grace. When you master that, you no longer move through life depleted. You move through it whole, calm, and untouchable. Transformation in stillness is one of life's quiet miracles. It is the process that unfolds not in noise or haste, but in moments of pause, reflection, and surrender. The world often tells us that change demands movement, that progress requires constant action. Yet the most profound transformations happen in silence, when you stop chasing and begin allowing. In stillness, you give yourself permission to rest, to breathe, and to listen. It is there, in the absence of motion, that your spirit begins to rearrange itself into something stronger, wiser, and more whole. Stillness is not stagnation, it is sacred preparation. Just as the earth rests between seasons before bursting into bloom, you too need moments of quiet before renewal. When you slow down, you start to notice what you have been running from. You face your pain without distraction and see your truth without distortion. In that honesty, transformation begins. The chaos that once consumed you starts to fade, replaced by a deeper understanding of what truly matters. You realize that life is not asking you to do more, it is asking you to be more present. In stillness, your thoughts untangle themselves. The mind, always racing ahead, finally takes a seat. You begin to feel the rhythm of your own breath, the steady pulse of your heart, and you realize that peace has been within you all along. You no longer look for healing in distant places or people. You find it in your own awareness. Transformation comes quietly through acceptance, forgiveness, and clarity. It is not something you force, it is something you allow. Stillness becomes the soil in which change takes root. Many fear stillness because it demands presence. It strips away distractions and asks you to face yourself. In silence, you can no longer hide behind busyness or pretense. You hear the voice within, the one that tells you what you need, what you've ignored, and what you must release. That voice is gentle but persistent. It leads you back to your essence, to the parts of you buried under noise and expectation. Transformation in stillness is not about becoming someone new. It is about remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. When you learn to rest in stillness, life begins to move differently around you. You stop reacting to every disturbance. You start responding with intention. The storms may still come, but you no longer let them sweep you away. You understand that chaos is temporary and clarity returns in calm. Through stillness, you learn patience, the kind that trusts timing, the kind that knows everything unfolds when it should. You stop forcing outcomes and begin to trust the flow of your journey. That trust is what transforms you. It turns anxiety into peace and doubt into quiet confidence. In the still moments, you heal. You let go of the stories you've carried for too long, the ones built from pain, fear, or regret. You begin to see how your struggles shaped you, not as punishment, but as preparation. Transformation in stillness is not loud or dramatic. It happens subtly, like dawn breaking after a long night. It softens your heart, strengthens your resolve, and fills you with compassion. You start treating yourself with gentleness, and in doing so, you begin to radiate that same grace into the world. Stillness teaches that transformation does not always announce itself. It can look like sitting quietly with your thoughts, walking alone under the sky, or forgiving someone without speaking a word. It is a slow, graceful unfolding, a rebirth of spirit that no one may see but everyone will feel. When you return to movement after stillness, you are not the same. You carry a quiet power, a deeper peace, and a wisdom that only silence could give. Transformation in stillness is life's most sacred art, the awakening that happens when you finally stop running and allow your soul to bloom in its own time. Grace in restraint is the quiet dignity that comes from mastering yourself when the world dares you to lose control. It is the art of responding with calm when chaos surrounds you, of choosing composure over impulse, and of letting wisdom speak louder than pride. In a world that glorifies reaction, restraint becomes a rare strength. It takes courage to hold your peace when provoked, to walk away when ego begs you to stay, and to rise above when everything around you pulls you down. Grace in restraint is not weakness. It is discipline wrapped in elegance. When you practice restraint, you reclaim your power. You stop allowing others to control your emotions or dictate your behavior. You learn that not every attack deserves defense, and not every insult requires reply. The person who can remain composed in the face of provocation has discovered the deepest kind of freedom, the freedom from being ruled by emotion. Restraint teaches you that silence is often more powerful than words, and patience more disarming than anger. It reminds you that peace is not found in winning arguments, but in refusing to lose yourself in one. Grace lives in the pause between reaction and response. It is in that space that you choose your character over your mood. Restraint asks you to breathe before speaking, to reflect before acting, to consider whether your reaction will build or break. It is not the suppression of emotion, it is the guidance of it. You allow yourself to feel, but you do not let feeling become your master. You realize that strength is not in striking back, but in standing tall with serenity. Grace does not fight for attention. It commands it through presence, through calm, through quiet assurance. The beauty of restraint is that it protects your energy. When you no longer react to every disruption, you preserve your peace. You begin to understand that not all chaos requires your participation. You stop explaining your worth to those who cannot see it, and you stop chasing closure from those who cannot give it. Grace in restraint is the art of detachment, not from caring, but from controlling. It is the realization that you cannot change how others act, but you can choose how you respond. That choice becomes your power, your protection, and your peace. There will be moments when people mistake your calm for weakness. Let them. They do not see the storm you have learned to silence within yourself. They do not understand the strength it takes to remain kind when faced with cruelty or to smile when the heart is weary. Grace in restraint is not for the faint-hearted. It demands maturity, humility, and faith in timing. It means trusting that truth will reveal itself without your defense and that life will balance itself without your interference. Through restraint, you also learn compassion. You begin to see beyond someone's harsh words or reckless behavior and recognize the pain that fuels it. Instead of reacting, you begin to understand. Instead of condemning, you begin to forgive. Grace softens your edges without dulling your strength. It allows you to rise above bitterness and keep your heart pure, even in a world that often rewards aggression. The one who can remain gentle in a harsh world carries a rare kind of power, the kind that changes everything without shouting. Grace in restraint is the highest expression of self-mastery. It is knowing that your worth does not depend on being right, your peace does not depend on being loud, and your dignity does not depend on being seen. It is choosing stillness over struggle, patience over pride, love over vengeance. It is walking away not because you are defeated, but because you are free. The grace to restrain yourself when anger burns is the mark of a soul that has evolved beyond ego and into wisdom. Becoming unshakable is not about living a life free of storms. It is about learning to stand firm when they come. It is about building a foundation within yourself so strong that no chaos outside of you can tear it apart. The world will always move with uncertainty. People will disappoint, plans will change, and life will test your limits. But when your peace is rooted within, you no longer sway with every gust of circumstance. You bend, but you do not break. You feel the waves, but you do not drown. Becoming unshakable begins when you decide that calm will be your anchor, no matter how fierce the sea. To become unshakable, you must first learn to trust yourself. Confidence does not come from never falling. It comes from knowing that you can rise each time you do. You stop fearing failure because you understand that it is not the opposite of success, but the teacher of it. Every setback becomes a lesson in resilience. Every heartbreak, a lesson in strength. You realize that life's challenges do not come to destroy you, but to refine you, to strip away what is weak so that what is strong may emerge. The unshakable person is not without scars. They simply wear them as proof that they have survived. Inner peace is the heart of unshakability. When you stop chasing control and start trusting the flow of life, you become immovable in spirit. You no longer seek validation from fleeting sources. You stop measuring your worth by the opinions of others. You understand that peace is not something given to you. It is something you cultivate through self-awareness and faith. When you center yourself in that peace, the noise of the world begins to fade. You learn to pause before reacting, to breathe before speaking, to observe before judging. That stillness becomes your shield. It protects you from being consumed by anger, fear, or doubt. Becoming unshakable also means letting go of the illusion that you can control everything. Control is a heavy chain that ties you to anxiety. But when you accept that you cannot shape every outcome, you begin to find freedom in surrender. You start focusing on what you can influence, your attitude, your choices, your energy. You stop resisting life and start aligning with it. There is a quiet power in surrender, not because you give up, but because you give in to trust. You trust that even in uncertainty, there is meaning. You trust that even in pain, there is purpose. There is also courage in stillness. It takes strength to be calm when everything inside you wants to scream. But that calm is not denial. It is mastery. It is choosing not to let your emotions dictate your path. It is standing tall in the middle of confusion and saying, "I will not crumble." When you reach that state, you no longer fear what tomorrow brings because you have faith in your ability to face it. The world may shift, people may change, but you remain grounded in who you are. Becoming unshakable does not mean you stop feeling. It means you stop being ruled by your feelings. You still experience sadness, disappointment, and pain, but you meet them with awareness, not despair. You understand that emotions are waves, and you are the shore. They may crash against you, but they cannot move you unless you let them. You find peace not in avoiding pain, but in knowing you can endure it. In time, this inner steadiness becomes your quiet strength. It is the glow behind your calm eyes, the stillness in your breath, the confidence in your steps. The world feels your peace even when you do not speak it. To be unshakable is to live with faith, grace, and trust in the unseen. It is to know that whatever happens, you will not fall apart. You will rise, wiser, calmer, and even more whole than before. Life's true transformation begins within. When you focus on yourself and learn the art of silence, you awaken a power that no noise can diminish. Through self-reflection, you understand your depth. Through energy preservation, you protect your peace. In stillness, you evolve quietly. And through restraint, you rise with dignity. Each lesson, each pause, builds your strength until you become unshakable, grounded in calm and guided by grace. The world may continue to rush, shout, and demand, but you will move differently. You will move with purpose, with wisdom, and with peace that cannot be stolen. For the one who has mastered silence has already mastered life.